What's good, everybody? It's Robo back with another video, and today I have my college football bowl game picks. Before I get started, I'm going to give a quick little channel update for all the new subscribers that may have missed it in my championship game video. I'm going to have my playoff prediction video come out in a few days, separate from this video, so stay tuned for that. Before the offseason, I have some college football content planned to come out throughout the year, but I'm also a big basketball guy, and I've got my first NBA big board of the season coming out pretty soon. So you can expect a lot of basketball content, as well as some NFL draft stuff and some college football stuff sprinkled here and there throughout the offseason. So stay tuned to the channel for that if that interests you. But that's it, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the picks, starting order and kickoff time as usual. Starting this Saturday with the Celebration Bowl, it's South Carolina State and Jackson State. This is not the same coach, but it is the same team that took down Deion Sanders' Jackson State team in the 2021 Celebration Bowl when Shedeur was just a freshman. Both of these teams have had incredible seasons and have been really hot as of late. Jackson State have an extra 2 games on the schedule this season. These are very even teams statistically, and as the spread shows, a complete toss-up type of game. But I think Jackson State does have an advantage in special teams and some dynamic players who can change a game in a single play. And I think they get revenge for that 2021 matchup, taking home the Celebration Bowl this year, 34-30. Now to Army versus Navy. Not a bowl game, but one of the most highly anticipated matchups of the season and a national holiday for college football fans. This year's battle is between two of the best Army and Navy teams in quite some time, including the American Conference champions in Army. Both of these teams will be playing for a bowl game this year as well, but this is obviously the biggest game of the year for both of these squads. No matter the talent gap between them, we typically get some great games and occasionally some upsets in this one. And I think this could be one of those years, but as we've seen from Army since the Notre Dame loss, they are the real deal. They absolutely dominated Tulane last week in that title game and just have such a well-coached team on both sides of the ball. I think Bryson Daly is the clear X factor in this game, and he looked really healthy last week. So I'm riding with Army over Navy by 10, 27-17. The third and last game of the opening Saturday of bowl season is our first FBS bowl game, the Salute to Veterans Bowl from Montgomery, Alabama. South Alabama will make the drive up north to play Western Michigan, and we've already gotten word from Gio Lopez that he will be returning to South Alabama next year after a pretty successful season at quarterback. Great news for the Jags' future, as well as their odds in this game if he's healthy and playing. The bad news is star freshman running back Fluff Bothwell is in the portal and probably won't play in this one. Western Michigan's defense has been really bad for the bulk of the year, and the offense has really died off as well lately. This is a game where I think they're just going to be a bit outmatched talent-wise and won't find too much of a rhythm, especially without tight end Blake Bosma, unless they get some big plays on the ground. But I like South Alabama by 2 scores in this game, 34-21. Memphis and West Virginia face off Tuesday night on the 19th in the Frisco Bowl in Frisco, Texas. So far, we've seen very few opt-outs for this game despite the head coaching change at West Virginia. Rich Rod is back for the Mountaineers, and as of right now, they'll be down just a linebacker for this game, but Memphis comes in almost completely full strength themselves, and their last time out was a rout over Tulane on the road to crush those playoff hopes. And we saw a vintage Seth Hennigan and Mario Anderson performance in that game. When they're clicking, this Memphis offense can score basically at will, and this West Virginia defense has shown nothing to say they'll be able to stop that duo. They gave up 52 in the season finale to Texas Tech last time out, and I think those defensive challenges continue enough into this game, so give me Memphis 31-24. Wednesday the 18th brings us 2 games, starting with the Boca Raton Bowl between Western Kentucky and James Madison. James Madison enters this one with way more continuity as the Hilltoppers have been kind of crushed by the portal already. Both starting quarterback Caden Veltkamp and backup quarterback TJ Finley are leaving, as well as 5 defensive starters. And for James Madison right now, it's pretty much just a left tackle that'll miss this one. I think they had an edge as the better team of the two heading into it, but was expecting a great game with Veltkamp. But now on to a third-string quarterback with a gutted defense. I really don't like Western Kentucky's chances here, especially so early in the bowl season. I think going with the Dukes to cover here is the right move, and I got them taking this one 30-17. Cal and UNLV play the 18th as well from SoFi Stadium for the LA Bowl. UNLV head coach Barry Odom left the program earlier this week for his new job coaching Purdue. But so far, not many portal news or opt-outs following just yet, and Cal will be without their leading receiver as well as starting quarterback Fernando Mendoza in this one, as he's at the portal already. And backup quarterback Chandler Rogers may not be able to go either, as he went down with an injury in the season finale a couple weeks ago. If he plays, I definitely think they have a shot in this one, and Cal does have the defensive talent to completely shut down this UNLV offense enough to keep a less experienced quarterback in the game. But I do believe UNLV does have enough offensive firepower with Haj Malik Williams to make things tougher on Cal's defense. And if this one comes down to Cal needing a big offensive possession, I just don't trust Rogers himself enough to get it done, especially if he's out. I like UNLV in this game close, 24-20. The lone game on the 19th is a New Orleans Bowl between Georgia Southern and Sam Houston. And Sam Houston will have an interim coach as Casey Keeler left for Temple, and as did a slew of players entering the portal. It sounds like several guys will end up playing in this game still, but the coaching change and opt-outs could hurt a bit still. Georgia Southern is basically full strength for this game, and I think they've got an offense that can score on a good Sam Houston defense in this one. And I know this Bearcat group has a chance to do the same with how bad Georgia Southern's defense is themselves, but they've really struggled to score for most of the back half of the year, and that offensive gap is just enough for me to take Georgia Southern here with the coaching situation adding on to it. I've got them taking this one 31-27. This year's Cure Bowl in Orlando, Florida will be between two conference champions with interim head coaches. Jacksonville State losing Rich Rod to West Virginia, and Ohio losing Tim Albin to Charlotte. And there's already been a few portal entries on the Jacksonville State side, but nothing over the top yet. This will be a game to monitor, though, as we've still got a week to go and more could come. But as it stands, I think this Ohio team is playing some incredible football right now. They absolutely demolished a really good defense in Miami, Ohio in that MAC championship. And Parker Navarro has had a really great end to the year. Jacksonville State's run game is really strong, but Ohio allows under 100 rushing yards a game. That's a top 5 mark in the entire country. And I feel like with that being their clear strength, this is the game Ohio could have control of again. And I like them to win this matchup close, 28-24. Florida takes on Tulane in the Gasparilla Bowl in Tampa, and as is pretty obvious, based on the late season play, Florida enters this one as a heavy favorite, but even more so now with the news that both starting quarterback Darian Mensah and backup quarterback Ty Thompson are transferring from Tulane. Ty Thompson did state that he will play and start in this bowl game, so that's good news for Tulane, but Florida is currently down just one defensive starter and will be facing an inexperienced backup in Thompson. I just don't see any scenario where Tulane has the offensive prowess to compete in this game long enough to win it. Florida's looked really good late in the year with DJ Lagway coming into his own, and there's just a huge gap in talent and experience now. I think Florida runs away with this one, 31-13. Coastal Carolina gets another bowl game at their home stadium in Conway, the Myrtle Beach Bowl, as they'll host the UTSA this season. That obviously gives a big environment advantage to the Chanticleers, but they'll be playing in this game without both quarterbacks they used most of the season, in both Ethan Vasco and Noah Kim, who've entered the portal. They'll also be out a couple other key starters in this game, and UTSA comes into this one the better team playing better football, so even in basically a true road game, they're favored by over a touchdown. But I still do believe this Coastal offense does have a fair amount of talent to be able to move the ball against the Roadrunners defense enough to keep it close, and seeing as it's virtually a home game and the Roadrunners have a couple guys banged up themselves, I would be surprised if they got ran out of their own building by a team of a similar stature. I like UTSA to win this one, but Coastal covers by keeping it closer, 34-28. Fresno State and Northern Illinois make up this year's famous Idaho Potato Bowl from the Boise Blue, and both starting quarterbacks in this game are in the portal and likely missing this one. Fresno's been hit harder by it so far, but I also think they had simply more talent on the field than Northern Illinois does regardless this season, but it really comes down to which backup quarterback performs better here. I think NIU has a slight defensive edge, which is why they're seen as the favorite, but at the same time, the level of competition they faced this season outside the Notre Dame game was at a much lesser level. There's also some bigger injuries both these teams are dealing with as well that throws another wrench into this one. For the game, I would expect a really low-scoring outcome because of the situation both these offenses are in, but I think that may end up favoring the more talented team, which, as I said, I personally believe is Fresno State. Another toss-up, but I'm going with Fresno here as an underdog, 24-21. Just one game on Christmas Eve, and this is the Hawaii Bowl between South Florida and San Jose State. Not many opt-outs on either side here, as the big one would be Nick Nash, who's currently in for San Jose State, and maybe we get a revenge game out of him after being snubbed at the Biletnikoff despite winning the Triple Crown for receiving this season. This San Jose State team has been very competitive for most of the year and took down Stanford in the season finale, and definitely has the talent to win this game, but the South Florida offense has been on a tear to close out the year, putting up 50s and 60s in some games, and that's despite Bryce Archie not being great, but an added boost will come with a return from Byron Brown, which is definitely possible for this bowl game. It's been reported he's practicing in full, so if he goes, I actually really like South Florida's chances of at least keeping this close and maybe winning it outright. The run game has been unbelievable, and they just scored at will with poor quarterback play. Again, if Brown goes, I'm much more confident, but I'm going with an upset here. South Florida wins this one, 31-28. Pitt and Toledo face off in the Game Above Sports Bowl from Ford Field in Detroit the day after Christmas. And Pitt will be hoping for a great news as starting quarterback Eli Holstein is currently questionable for the bowl game after missing the season finale, and backup quarterback Nate Yarnell is already left for the portal. If Holstein doesn't go, this gives Toledo a genuine shot at a big upset here, but Coach Narduzzi says he does believe there's a good shot that he plays. And with the way Toledo has played offensively in their final few games this season, I really don't see them scoring enough on Pitt to be able to make this one tough. Or maybe even staying it long enough to even cover. 14 points against Akron was an absolute disaster performance from the Rockets and gives me almost zero confidence they can hang with Pitt here. We would have to see a completely revitalized Toledo team throw some haymakers early in this game for that to be the case, and I don't think Pitt's going to allow it. I've got them winning here 30-14. Also on the 26th is the Rate Bowl with Rutgers and Kansas State. Rutgers is awaiting decision from star running back Kyle Monangai and star tackle Holland Pierce for this game, but I think the run game should find a little success even if both were to sit off this game, as Rutgers ran pretty well for most of the season even when Monangai missed games to injury. Kansas State does have a great run defense though, and could definitely shut it down enough to turn them into a pass-first offense with Kaliak Manis. So my read is that'll be the deciding part of this matchup. The Rutgers defense is a solid group at times, but I really don't think they'll get enough stops on Avery Johnson with the mobility he has to extend drives. And this definitely seems like a game where the better offense just finds enough points to stave off a grinded out type of team like Rutgers is. I can see this being even lower scoring, but I'm going to go with Kansas State close, 28-24. The last game of the 26 is Bowling Green and Arkansas State in the 68 Ventures Bowl in Mobile, Alabama. Bowling Green's biggest offensive weapons will both reportedly play in this game, despite Fannin heading to the NFL and Terry and Stewart being in the portal, which is huge news, as in my opinion, Harold Fannin absolutely should have won the Mackey Award as a top tight end in the country this season, and Terrion Stewart's one of the better backs in the MAC himself. Arkansas State's offense can really get going at times, though, and it's mainly been the defense that's cost them throughout the season. But they're currently near full strength for this game, and I do expect Jalen Raynor and company to score enough to keep the Red Wolves in it. Bowling Green's defense was alright this year, but not great at stopping the run, and had some games they gave up some big plays. I think this one could end up a little bit higher scoring than some would predict, but I have Bowling Green Stars taking over enough to win it close, 31-27. Finally, on to the loaded stretch of games. December 27th has 5 matchups, and I'll start with Oklahoma and Navy in the Armed Forces Bowl. Oklahoma's out a bunch of guys in this game, including starting quarterback Jackson Arnold and a couple receivers in Jaleel Farouk, Nick Anderson, and Angelo Anthony. Obviously, this offense was really bad for most of the season, but it's still a decently talented group of guys that's going to be out. So Michael Hawkins will make the start with a lot of guys getting run that haven't done much this year, and they'll be facing a Navy team that played just 2 weeks prior to this against Army, so less downtime for them, obviously. Honestly, though, the big thing in this game for me is Oklahoma's defense, specifically against the run. They completely shut down Alabama a few weeks ago and held Milroe in check. So although Navy runs a completely different style of offense, that does give me some confidence that Brent Venables will be able to slow down Navy enough to win this one. As long as they're locked in defensively, I think they'll survive this one, maybe by double digits. I'll go 28-17 final for the Sooners. Next is Vanderbilt and Georgia Tech in the Birmingham Bowl in Alabama, a matchup of 2 quarterbacks who really like to move with the football. Diego Pavia lighting up the season with his final year eligibility with over 2,000 passing yards and 700 more rushing. And on this other side, Haynes King at quarterback, who's an absolute stud and nearly pulled off his 3rd upset of the year over Georgia in their season finale. This should be a really fun game to watch between the 2 dynamic quarterbacks, and not many opt-outs so far either, with the exception of a big one in Eric Singleton from Georgia Tech. They can obviously throw the football without him, as they've got other weapons, but Singleton was the go-to guy, so that is a big loss. I actually think that could end up helping Vandy pull off an upset here. The spread is close, so I really wouldn't call it one, but Diego Pavia is just built for these kinds of games. I don't think we see Georgia Tech at their sharpest, and Pavia leads Vandy to a victory one final time, 27-24. Texas Tech and Arkansas are in this year's Liberty Bowl from Memphis, Tennessee, and this spread has completely flipped in the opening week due to some opt-outs on the Arkansas side. For Texas Tech, the big one we're waiting on is Taj Brooks, but nothing yet, and Arkansas is going to be down at least 5 starters on offense, including star wide receiver and tight ends Andrew Armstrong and Luke Hasz. Some tough losses for Taylor Green to deal with, but Texas Tech's defense probably isn't one that can generate a ton of stops against a mobile quarterback anyways. They'll also be missing some key defensive guys in this game as well, so as a whole, I just really lean towards Texas Tech's offense being able to do whatever it wants, even if Taj Brooks doesn't play. And even if he's out, I think Morton and Kelly can have a day. I think this one could get pretty high scoring, but I do like Texas Tech as the better offense by a touchdown, 35-27. On to the Holiday Bowl in San Diego between Washington State and Syracuse. Many expected John Mateer to enter the portal by now, but he still has not, and there's plenty of time until this matchup still, but as of right now, Washington State only has a couple guys out, and Syracuse looks like a full go themselves, including Kyle McCord. Both he and this Cuse team proved their worth again last time out, taking down Miami to keep them out of both the ACC title game and the college football playoffs. And to keep it simple, that Miami defense is a lot more talented than this Washington State group. I would expect Mateer to pose a similar challenge for the Orange defense as well as Ward and some other guys did this year, but in no world do I see the Cougars slowing down Kyle McCord and Syracuse here at all. I think the incredible year 1 for Fran Brown continues with his first bowl win as well, 38-28 over Washington State. Texas A&M takes on USC in the Las Vegas Bowl, and Marcel Reed will once again get the start as he earned several weeks ago, and now with Wegman headed to Houston as well. Some of the NFL prospects on A&M's roster still haven't made an opt-out decision yet, but as it stands, USC has lost more than a few guys already to opt-outs themselves. Kyron Hudson, Deuce Robinson, and some others will not play in this game, and Mayava will be the lone quarterback as Miller Moss is out as well. USC just did not look impressive this season, and Mayava didn't really do much to change that in the few games he played in. And now without a couple of big offensive talents and against a very solid A&M defense, it's tough to see the Trojans finding much success, especially when this game needs to be used as a chance for Marcel Reed to take a lead in the QB1 race for next season, as I definitely expect there to be at least a battle with the incoming Jacob Zeno. I think Reed shines enough in this game to take it though, 30-21. North Carolina just hired Bill Belichick as head coach of the future and will now be heading to his old town in Boston for the Fenway Bowl. Not coached by him, of course, as they'll go the interim route for this game with Freddie Kitchens. As it stands right now, Omarion Hampton has not opted out yet, so if he's a go, that's a massive boost to this offense, obviously. UConn has had an exceptional year to their standards and has a really great rushing attack themselves, but I think this North Carolina team should still be able to control this game for the most part. UConn went 0-3 against the ACC this season with losses to Duke, Wake Forest, and Syracuse. They did keep that Syracuse game close, but with a meaningless late score in the fourth quarter, and got demolished in total yards that game. I do think Syracuse is a tier above UNC, but if Hampton plays, I really like UNC's chances here. It's a good opportunity to build some momentum heading into the offseason in a new era for that program, so I'm taking them by a touchdown here, 31-24. Over to the rival ballpark, it's the Pinstripe Bowl from Yankee Stadium. Nebraska will take on Boston College, and yes, despite some early rumors, Dylan Raiola is still with the Huskers and will play in this game, but they'll be without a couple key defensive starters who entered the transfer portal earlier this week. Regardless, I think Nebraska has shown a lot of competitiveness even in their losses this season, and Dana Holgerson's now had a month plus as offensive coordinator and continue to gel within that system. Boston College defense is nothing special, especially against the pass, so I think this is a game where Raiola could really shine. And I think the Huskers could have a decent day defensively themselves, even with the opt-outs because of how solid they've been against the run this year. Unless those few holes end up being a major problem, I think Nebraska wins a fairly low-scoring game here. I'll roll with them by a touchdown, 24-17. TCU will take on Louisiana in the New Mexico Bowl on the 28th, and it could be a much different Louisiana team than we saw throughout the regular season. Backup quarterback Chandler Fields went down early in the Sun Belt Championship game and was carted off that field, and Ben Woolridge, the original starter, has been out for several weeks, but reportedly could suit up for this game. If he goes, that's great news for Raging Cajuns, but if not, this team will be relying on a true freshman who went 9 for 24 in the title game to outpace one of the best offenses in the Big 12 in TCU. That's just not something anyone's going to see happening here, and a reason why TCU is a near 2-touchdown favorite already. From a betting perspective, I would definitely want more clarity on the Woolridge news before betting, but as it stands right now, I think if you can't go, 11.5 is a great number for TCU. I think they take this game by at least 2 scores if he's out. I'll go 35-17. Now over to the Pop-Tart Bowl in Orlando, it's Cam Ward and Miami taking on the Iowa State Cyclones. Things could change, but as it stands, Cam Ward said he's playing in this game, which means we should get a great one between him and Rocco Becht. The Cyclone pass defense was unbelievable this year and could make Ward struggle throughout this game, but he was a Heisman candidate for a reason, and I'd expect him to get his game going regardless. Iowa State's offense was solid this year statistically, but towards the lower half in conference, and Miami has the pass rush talent to force some mistakes from Becht to change this game. I really think this one goes down to the wire and ends up one of the better bowls to watch, but I like Miami as a better talented team to come out on top in this one, 34-28. Colorado State and Miami, Ohio are in this year's Arizona Bowl presented by Snoop Dogg, and both teams have had a couple key opt-outs so far. Colorado State out 3 starting defenders, and Miami's going to be without their top 2 wide receivers and top cornerback for this game. Last time out, Miami got ran over by Ohio in the MAC championship, an outcome I really didn't see happening, and neither did Vegas as they were favored by a few points in that one. But the defense just completely collapsed, and the offense could not find any success at all. Colorado State's defense is much worse than Ohio statistically though, so I don't see Gabbert getting shut out of this one. But I definitely can see Fowler Nicolosi in the Rams offense finding a rhythm in a similar way that Parker Navarro did. Even as slight underdogs, I actually like Colorado State to win this game. They should have a slight crowd advantage, and I think the offense is just going to be better in this matchup. I'll take them 27-20 over Miami, Ohio. The Military Bowl is next between East Carolina and NC State. Both teams have been missing their top receivers in Chase Sewell and KC Concepcion. 2 huge losses for both offenses in this game. East Carolina was really struggling in the middle of the year until Caden Hauser took over at quarterback and found life within that offense, mostly with Sewell and Anthony Smith. But NC State's going to be a really tough matchup for them in my opinion. This team really came on late in the year, and after a disastrous start to the season, beating Cal, crushing Stanford, nearly upsetting Georgia Tech, and then taking down North Carolina on the road in the finale. CJ Bailey has really come into his own lately, and the offense looks a lot better, but the defense can still be hit or miss at times. I think this could definitely end up a higher scoring game than they like, but I really don't know how many stops ECU is going to be able to get if Bailey's clicking still without KC. I'm rolling with NC State here by double digits, 38-27. Maybe my most anticipated bowl matchup this season is an in-conference one. BYU and Colorado get a Big 12 face-off in this year's Alamo Bowl. It sounds like everyone on Colorado is going to be playing in this game as it's their first bowl game in a while and a chance for Deion to continue building that program up. And one final game for Shadur and Travis Hunter as a college duo. These 2 teams did not play in the regular season, but knowing how strong BYU's defense was for the majority of the season, I think it'll be a great battle. But BYU really did not impress down the stretch of the season. Losing to Kansas and Arizona State and then having a really close game until a late score against Houston at home was not a good finish at all after a 9-0 start to the year. I think their momentum has really died off, so maybe this extended break will be good for them to get that back a bit. But this Colorado offense has so many weapons and an outstanding quarterback leading them. They've shown up all season long, and I highly doubt that changes in a game as big as this one for the program. Give me Deion and the Buffs one more time this year, 31-24 in the Alamo Bowl. Army's bowl game this year is the Independence Bowl, and it should be an absolute rout, honestly, as they're taking on the Sun Belt champions in Marshall, but a much different Marshall team now as they did not renew Charles Huff's contract, and he left for Southern Miss, which has basically led to the entire team entering the transfer portal and unable to play in this game. They're down to 2 freshmen at quarterback as a starter, and both backups are not playing, and superstar back A.J. Turner is also in the portal. I would genuinely be shocked to see Marshall find much success in this game at all without that turnover. They'll be relying on freshmen and experience all over the field against a really good Army team that will probably run all over them here. Even at full strength, this defense couldn't stop the run much all season, so Army can easily pick them apart now. I think Army wins this game handily. I'll go 35-13 final. Now to December 30th, just one game, and it's a Music City Bowl in Nashville between Iowa and Missouri. Missouri's going to be without Luther Burden and their star right tackle in this game, but it does look like Brady Cook will play. But for Iowa, they'll be missing one of the best backs in the country in Caleb Johnson. As we know with Iowa, though, they produce highly productive backs all the time, and we've seen great things from Kamari Moulton at times this season. This offense probably struggles in this game regardless, though, as Missouri's defense is really good when they're up to it. So they'll need Brendan Sullivan to get healthy and play in this game, but to help shake up the offense a little bit. Kirk Ferentz typically does well in bowl games, though, besides last season's ugly loss to Tennessee. But I really don't think this Missouri team finds a lot of offense against Iowa either. I think we could see a similar game to the Nebraska one in the finale where both teams are under the 20-point mark. But my gut is telling me Brandon Sullivan does start and performs well enough to take an early lead in the 2025 quarterback battle with Hank Brown, taking a Music City Bowl victory in that process, 20-17. Michigan comes off their huge upset win over Ohio State to face Alabama in the ReliaQuest Bowl in Tampa, and they'll be doing so again without Will Johnson and maybe Colston Loveland, but now also without Mason Graham, the best defensive lineman in all of college football. Alabama comes into this game near full strength as well, a couple defensive injuries, but Jalen Milroe is going to play, and the opt-outs are mostly backups right now. This is a really tough matchup for Michigan in my opinion, as I don't expect the defense to be quite as dominant as they were against the Buckeyes. No Graham and no rivalry factor could play a huge part, and I still believe this offense will have a tough time scoring many points here. With that said, I'm not expecting a blowout in this game. Michigan still has a ton of talent and some momentum now, but give me Alabama to win this one, 27-17. Washington and Louisville are in this year's Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl in El Paso, Texas, and great news for Washington fans came with Tyler Shuck announcing he's sitting out to prepare for the NFL. Backup Harrison Bailey likely gets to start in his place, but that has not been confirmed to this point. And as for Washington, they said they'll be rolling with freshman Damon Williams, who has impressed at times throughout the year, especially as a runner. As Washington looks towards the future, I think it's the right move, and his experience throughout the season is going to help him prepare for this game enough to be able to be effective, in my opinion. Louisville's a very solid team, but without Shuck and now Ja'Cory Brooks opting out, I actually really like the odds that they can pull off the upset. Jonah Coleman could have a big day on the ground as he gears up for next season with the Huskies, and the dual threat ability of Williams could really come into play here. I also like the Husky defense to get timely stops in this game with all that Louisville's going to be missing. So like I said, I'll be taking Washington in an upset here, 28-23. South Carolina faces Illinois in the Citrus Bowl in Orlando on New Year's Eve with almost no serious opt-outs on either side for this game so far besides Pat Bryant for Illinois, which definitely is a big one as he's a leading receiver, but Altmaier does have other weapons that'll be available to him in this game. I think it'll just be a matter of how effective will they be against this South Carolina defense. This team just barely missed out on the playoffs after ending the year on a 6-game win streak, including a road win over Clemson, and then also wins over Texas A&M and Missouri as well. Lenora Sellers has really come on as one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC, and maybe even the country this season, and Illinois could be a tougher defense, but probably nothing they haven't already seen in the SEC. South Carolina is limited to some solid offenses throughout the season, and I still just am not a big believer in Illinois compared to this South Carolina team, especially without Pat Bryant. This is not a great matchup for them to me, so I've got the Gamecocks by double digits, 31-20. The final New Year's Eve matchup and the last of 2024 is the Texas Bowl between LSU and Baylor. This game is in Houston, so a bit more neutral actually, despite Baylor being in-state, but I'm expecting a really fun game here between these two solid offenses. LSU is out some big names though, as all of Will Campbell, Emory Jones, and CJ Daniel are out for this game, but it does look like Kyron Lacey will play, and we've already gotten word that Garrett Nussmeier is back for 2025, so he'll be a go for this one as well. Baylor's not had many opt-outs news at all to this point, so I'm expecting them to look like their usual selves, which is a high-powered offense that LSU may struggle to stop throughout this game. Defensively, though, Baylor has not been very good at all, giving up about 390 yards a game this season, so even with the big offensive line opt-outs, I think LSU is going to have a decent day in this game. Despite a poor stretch towards the end of the year, Garrett Nussmeier finally came back on strong in the final two games, and he's still got an NFL future in my eyes. I just think this game comes down to whose defense can get more stops, as there may not be many of them in this game, and I think that it's going to be LSU ending the season on a high note, 34-28. Our first matchup of 2025 is Ole Miss and Duke in the Gator Bowl, and based on the opt-outs, any outcome besides Ole Miss winning this game would be a pretty big shock. Duke quarterback Malik Murphy is transferring to Auburn, and so it'll be Henry Bellin starting this one for the Blue Devils. Ole Miss has not had any major opt-outs yet, and Jackson Dart already said he'd be playing in this game. So as I said, a clear winner here unless Duke's defense is able to pull off an incredible game against an elite offensive attack. This is Dart's final game in an Ole Miss uniform, and I know he really wanted the playoffs this season, so I'd expect nothing less than a great show here. Although Duke's defense has done a pretty great job almost all year long, I just really have a hard time seeing Duke finding many points in this game themselves. Ole Miss has shut down some great offenses with much better talent, and Malik Murphy was a huge part of Duke's success this year. I almost think 2 scores is way too light for a spread unless Henry Bellin comes out firing. I like the Rebels to come finish the season strong with a 35-17 win over the Blue Devils in Jacksonville. Next is the First Responder Bowl in Dallas, Texas. It's an in-state matchup of North Texas and Texas State. Texas State's going to be out a few starters, including a huge one on running back Ismail Mahdi for this game. And North Texas will be without starting quarterback Chandler Morris and his top weapon DT Sheffield, as he's also in the portal. 2 major losses for the Mean Green, as they'll now have to go turn to a freshman quarterback against a team I just think is clearly better than them regardless. The North Texas defense has been picked apart all season long, besides when they've gone up against some horrendous offensive teams like Temple. And without Chandler Morris, some key weapons on top of that, I cannot trust a freshman quarterback to come out and ball enough to keep up with Jordan McLeod and the Bobcats offense. They've scored a ton all year long, including a recent stretch of games with 38 plus and 4 straight. I do think we get a bunch of offense regardless in this game, but I think Texas State wins this one by 2 scores, 38-24. The Mayo Bowl is next, with Minnesota and Virginia Tech facing off in Charlotte. Virginia Tech's defense has been hit hard by the portal, losing a few major guys in that secondary, and we'll have to see what guys like Powell, Ryland, and Peebles do for this game as well, as they're both NFL prospects. Offensively, I would expect Kyron Jones and Bayshul Tootin to both play, which is a big impact to the offense, obviously. But Minnesota is currently full strength heading in this game, and Max Brosmer has really ended the year strong, dominating Wisconsin on the road in the finale. Darius Taylor was fantastic in that game as well, and rushed for over 150 yards on the ground. And the Gopher defense was once again lights out. This is the type of team who can keep games low scoring and instill their will in the run game, and I do like Brosmer's chances up against a weak and Hokie defense now to be able to hit on some bigger pass plays to be able to win this one. However, with Drones and Tootin healthy and going in this game, Virginia Tech absolutely has a chance to steal this game from them. I think a near touchdown spread could be too much and well worth taking to me. I think this one goes down to the final possession, but I'm going with the Gophers to take it by 4, 27-23. Our final bowl matchup of the college football season is the Bahamas Bowl on January 4th between Buffalo and Liberty, but a much different Liberty team than we've seen this year, as Caden Salter hit the portal, and so did 3 starting offensive linemen. Ryan Berger will get the start in his place, and I definitely could see that Flames offense having a tough time through the air with less protection than normal. So it'll be up to Quentin Cooley if he's a go to be able to take over this game for Liberty. I was not a big fan of Liberty's defense this year, and they were pretty bad against the run, an area where Buffalo's offense has really excelled in at times throughout the year. I think CJ Agbana has a really good day using his legs, as well as star back Aljay Henderson. If both of those guys get going, I have a tough time seeing Liberty winning this game without Salter. Buffalo just has too big of an advantage in the ground game against that front 7 for Liberty. So like I said, I like the Bulls to get a big win here as a slight underdog, 31-27. That's it for my bowl picks. Let me know your thoughts and picks down in the comments below, as well as any future content you'd like to see on the channel, of course. As always, thanks for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.